Moving on to our next segment of the program, we are pleased to introduce a lady who has greatly impacted the field of philanthropy and social entrepreneurship in Asia. Dr. Ruth Shapiro is the co-founder of the Center for Asian Philanthropy and Society, and she'll be speaking on the topic of decarbonizing growth, accelerating sustainability. We're very honored to have her here today. Dr. Shapiro, can I please invite you on stage?
Good morning, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here in KL with you. I was given this topic of decarbonizing growth, accelerating sustainability, which is the same top title as this conference. So I felt like it allowed me to essentially say whatever I wanted to say. So during my remarks, I'm going to take a step back a little bit and kind of frame some bigger contextual issues for us. So where do I point this to? Well, that's me. Not too long ago. A lot of times pictures can be 10 years old. This is fairly recent, so it looks like me. I don't really want to talk about me, but I want to talk about CAPS, the Center for Asian Philanthropy and Society. We are headquartered in Hong Kong, but we work across the region in 18 economies, so 16 countries plus Hong Kong and Taiwan. And our mission is to improve both the quality and quantity of how private resources do good. So that's philanthropy, CSR, impact investing, blended finance, all the ways in which private capital can be brought to bear on doing good. And I know this is going to sound a little bit strange coming from someone who's so clearly not originally from this region, but we try to look at things from the point of view of Asia. We don't assume that best practice automatically emanates from Europe and the United States. We need to understand what works on the ground in this part of the world. So CAPS research, our convening, and our advisory is really grounded in what motivates Asian business leaders, Asian philanthropists, Asian social investors to do what they do, and then document effective strategies and double down on those effective strategies. All of our work is available on our website, caps.org, so I encourage you to take a look at that. I'm just going to start with the basics. You know, why does Asia matter? 60% of the world's population, 40% and climbing of the world's GDP, high climate vulnerability. And as we heard from the last panel, countries like Malaysia are not responsible for creating the mess we're in, but you're going to be more and more responsible for helping us get out of the mess that we're in. And so Asia is highly vulnerable to climate, and whether we like it or not, we're in this together, and we need to figure out ways to get beyond it. So these are just some statistics that we all know about how bad it is, right? India, record height, above 43, 44 degrees, day in and day out, people dying. 6 to 10 of the most climate vulnerable economies are in Asia. Jakarta, they're moving. I mean, it's one thing to move to Putrajaya, which is down the road, so to speak. Indonesia's going much further than that. We'll see how that works out when they set up shop in Nusantara. And Bangladesh is basically in a lot of really literal hot water. I want to talk about Asian characteristics. So we did a study called Building Back Greener, and it's on our website. And it was prompted by a research report that came out of an American organization called ClimateWorks. And the statement out of ClimateWorks was, foundations in Asia don't give philanthropic capital to climate. That is a true statement, but it is the wrong statement. Why? Because there are not Ford and Gates and Rockefeller foundations in Asia. Most wealthy people route their philanthropic capital through their companies. So if you want to look at independent private foundations, you'd be hard-pressed to find ones that are not linked to companies. Mostly they're corporate foundations. And corporate foundations have a different agenda. So we need to understand what motivates them. So we did this study, and we came out with 4, essentially, characteristics of how philanthropic and business leaders in this region are responding to climate change. And let me go through each one. First, in this region, aside from Singapore, Korea, Japan, and Taiwan, the rest of the region is made up of emerging markets. Middle-income economies like Malaysia, yes. Poor economies like Laos and Nepal, yes. But emerging markets. Emerging markets have a different set of issues than the global north. And we need to really consider what the issues are. And I'm not saying that we should cop out and say, hey, you know, you guys got to develop, and so we get to develop like you. Obviously not. Asia, if there's one word that I would describe for this part of the world, it's pragmatic. No one is saying that Asia, that the emerging economies in Asia need to follow the same development path as the United States or some European economies. No one's saying that. The question is, what are the different alternatives? We know what the goal is. The goal's net zero. But we need to come up with some new pathways and new ways to get to that destination. Next, 85% of all companies, small, medium, as we were just talking about, and large, are family-dominated in this part of the world. Families have really strong feelings about connectivity to community, about legacy, about values, and they also don't really differentiate between their private wealth and what their company's doing. So they look at multifaceted responses in more holistic manners. And while that's different than many Western models, it can be a great strength. Second, it was just discussed, and we're going to discuss it later with regulations. Who has disposable income in Asia? Business people. And business people tend not to want to antagonize their own governments. They want to work aligned with government. So it's kind of ironic that a lot, and you probably have figured out, I have this New York accent, and I'm clearly an American. But America was created by people who were trying to escape from governments. For the last 300 years, everybody who moved to the United States was trying to get away from where they were coming from. So Americans tend not to think of a government as the solution provider. In Asia, that's not the case. Government is often the go-to solution provider. You want to work aligned with government. You want to be in collaboration with government. Many public-private partnerships are forming where private capital and government work together to solve social problems. So philanthropists and business leaders look to government for the cues about how they need to respond not only to climate, but to challenges in education and health and in their workforce, with their labor, et cetera. Because these families are really the dominant forces in both philanthropic and commercial capital going toward climate, it's important to think that there is this kind of strong connectivity to place. People talk about cross-border philanthropy. Actually, there is not a lot of cross-border. There's cross-border investment. But if you look at the banks that were just here on the stage, I don't know their detailed CSR portfolio, chances are most of it is happening in Malaysia. People give to where they are, where their company's operations are, sometimes where they're from, where their family's from. Connectivity to place is really important. And here are a couple of examples of this from Thailand CP Group. CP Has everyone heard of CP Group? Yes. It's the largest chicken company in the world, although they've gone way beyond chickens. And they use their own supply chain to work with farmers in rural areas to elevate those farmers in ways that help CP, and we're going to talk about shared value in just a second. And then, but also, they are connected and committed to Thailand, particularly where they're from, even though they're providing chickens and chicken feed and all kinds of agricultural and real estate products around the region. Tata Schools Green Projects is another one. Tata, you've probably all heard of from India. So what they do is, in Tata Steel, is that they realize that kids need to have a better understanding of how to recycle, how to use water effectively. India has a big problem with water. How to think about the environment integrated in all aspects of their life. And so they've created this Green Schools program operating with public schools to really help with environmental education. And the next is appreciation of win-win strategies. So the term shared value was coined by two American academics, Michael Porter from Harvard and the other guy, whose name will occur to me in just a minute. But shared value is a notion that has been true in Asia for millennia. You know, people, this is a pragmatic place. People look for win-win strategies. They look for ways that help their company and help the community. The last speaker was exactly right. What motivates SMEs? One is regulations, the government, but the other is once companies realize that going green is a competitive advantage and an economic opportunity, the rest is just figuring out how to do that. We need to make sure everybody's at that place where they see addressing climate not as a cost, but as an opportunity. And then things will happen. I just want to mention these two. The one in China, I think is a great example. So China has a lot of very dry, arid areas. Baofeng Energy is an energy company, and they created, I don't know how many of you have been to China, but China does not do anything small. Everything is big, including the buildings they're building in KL. They just don't do small. So they create one of the world's largest solar farms. And they realize that, why? Because they're an energy company and they need the solar energy. But they realize that condensation forms under the solar panels and that they can grow crops under the solar panels that wouldn't be able to grow otherwise in Ningxia province, which is a dry, hot, arid area. And so they grow goji berries. And I think many of you know goji berries are a superfood, very popular. And because it's so big, they employ 80,000 people to take care of the solar panels, to take care of the goji berries. Because of the goji berries, the income for those 80,000 people has tripled. So I like that example because it's about win, win, win. And those are the kind of solutions that we really need. Those are the most sustainable, and those are the most exciting. Great Giant Foods is a company in Indonesia that does pineapple and bananas. And what they do is they take all the waste from those pineapple and bananas, because they cut the pineapple, and make methane that then provides the energy not only for their own plantations, but all the villages and communities in which their plantations are. So again, circular economy, win, win, win. Those are very exciting examples. But we have challenges. We were just talking about them. What are they? Okay, right now, Asia as a whole is on track to achieve zero of the Sustainable Development Goals as a region. Some countries are going to get to a couple of them. So that's not good. We need to do better. But what we realize is there's a lot of competing agendas. So the message that we're talking about today, and the message really from the global north, is decarbonization, decarbonization, decarbonization. And what people in places like Malaysia are saying is, great, we want to decarbonize, but we also have to care about livelihoods and economic development, and we need to find those balances. And we can't just focus on decarbonization without thinking about the other SDGs that are really important to the people that in our communities. So the competing agendas is real, and we need to think about finding these balancing acts. Again, not a cop-out, just thinking about new solutions, new win-win strategies. Second, lack of talent. Now, when I go to these conferences like this one, I've only sat in on the first session. A lot of times people say, well, we need more people to fill out the reports for our reporting requirements for all these requirements that we have. Yes, we need more accountants who understand financial cost accounting. We need more people who understand how to write a sustainability report. But we also need technical people and engineers who understand how to build a green building. It's not the same as building a regular building, right? So companies need to have skilled talent that can give them viable solutions. And that's not just on the reporting side, that's on the science and the tech side as well. When you're trying to solve for education, most people can figure it out. In fact, we all went to school. But when you're trying to actually create new ways that are climate resilient, conservation, green initiatives, you need science and you need tech. And those people, we need to educate a lot more of them. We've probably all heard of this, the alphabet soup of standards. This actually isn't even a full list. Many of you, especially from the larger companies, are saying, yes, we adhere to science-based protocols, we adhere to GRI, we adhere to all these. There's one company we work with in Malaysia that actually has 22 people whose only job it is to fill out all the reports for all these different reporting requirements. 22 people. I mean, it's a growth industry. I'm not sure that it's really useful, and I actually asked the CEO of that company, do you know if filling out all these reports, does the market reward you for all of this stuff? Or are there ones that are more than others that are really important? And then there's mixed views, and that's a worthy, I think, conversation to have. Which reporting requirements make the most sense for Malaysia, for your companies, right? But doing all of them, it's a lot of time and energy. And then there are the net zero commitments. So we know that everybody's committing to net zero, good. We also know that many people, most of these governments don't have a very clear plan about how to get there. So I've been committing to losing 10 pounds for a long time. I may have more of a sense of how to get there, but I basically haven't been able to do it. I hope that the Malaysian government is much better at getting to net zero than I've been able to get to 10 pounds. But this does create kind of incentives and pressure on companies who then follow suit and say, yes, we're going to get to net zero too, without clear roadmaps. These are all connected. We need more talent and expertise to be able to give us solutions and think about ways to get there in creative ways. So let me just close by saying all those standards, every single one of them that was on that slide, comes from the West, comes from the North. And not to say that they're bad, but we need to be thoughtful about the thought leadership, the solutions, the ideas that come from Malaysia, that come from here. This is the part of the world that's most exciting, that's most growing, and I encourage you to think out of the box. Follow those standards, do the right thing, but be creative and come up with new solutions. The whole planet is relying on you to do so. Thank you.